So, what do we have at the moment? We transferred the Java version of Minecraft twice. We transferred Xbox 360 worlds and transferred the world from the old version to the new one for a clean and official Bedrock edition of Minecraft. Finally, we got around to transferring the world from the new version of Minecraft to the old one for the Bedrock only. You will be surprised how much Bedrock changes its shape, how it is covered with bugs, and how it tries to replace non-existent blocks. It will be a very exciting journey. Fasten your seatbelts, we're off! Yes, there is no official way. The developers have disabled world transfer, just like there is no way to downgrade the older version of Bedrock, but there are always tricks, which we will use today. To access older version of Minecraft, I will use an official Bedrock launcher. There are two ways to convert a world. The first one is free, Chunker, and the second one is a paid, universal Minecraft tool. We will talk about each of them in this video, but let's start as always with the latest version of Minecraft, which is still 1.21, Tricky Trails. I hope that someday we will move on to the version 1.22. Because this version of the world is the most up-to-date one, all I had to do was to load the territory that will undergo changes in the future. I appeared in the large dark forest, but the first thing that caught my eye was a wonderful island surrounded by a small lake. It looks very beautiful and cozy. A little further from this place was a giant jungle biome, in which even a bamboo forest was generated. Oh, what will happen to it next? Right behind it was the Badlands. It's a very large biome, which in addition to the usual Badlands also has a wooded Badland biome. Next to it is the Savannah, which is not very big and has 2 villages. That's for the future. On the other side, a birch forest awaited me, a plain biome on which a pillager outpost had been generated. But for some reason pillagers had disappeared, and immediately behind it was a large frozen ocean with small icebergs. Just in case, I loaded the trial chambers. Right after that, I went to explore Minecraft version 1.20, Trials and Tales. From a generation standpoint, almost nothing had changed, but I was curious to see if there would be any early signs of problems after converting the world. By the way, it wasn't as difficult as I thought. At first, I simply exported my world from the game. There is an option for this in the world settings. Then, in Chunker, I selected the Bedrock world, waited a couple of seconds for it to load, and was presented with the choice of which version to select. In my case, it was Bedrock. But sadly, the latest version in this program is 1.12.0. There is no option to select an older version. This is sad and very unfortunate, but I tried to find a solution anyway. After loading my new world into the old version, I didn't see anything strange or confusing. At first glance, everything remained as it was before, but that was only at first glance. Not far from where I loaded the trial chambers, I discovered the frozen river where the ice had disappeared. I thought it was strange, but literally 100 blocks away, near the snow village, I found 2 missing chunks. I honestly don't understand how this could have happened, considering that there was nothing new in terms of world generation that could have affected in any way. Someone just took and cut out 2 chunks right down to the lowest levels. So I set out to look for the other side's effects. The only thing I could find was cut tree leaves, and only in jungle biome. Everywhere else was calm and problem-free. It's time for version 1.19. As you all remembered, it's the wild update. It brought mangrove swamps, the warden, and of course the ancient city to the game. The update, by the way, came out 2 years ago. As soon as I loaded the world, the spawn remained the same. But as soon as I flew up, I noticed some changes in my world. The first thing I noticed was an island of the dark forest. The foliage on the trees had been cut off, while the tree trunks remained in place, as if someone had simply run a pair of scissors through the trees. The pillagers in the outpost never appeared. No matter how long I stayed there, but nothing happened. Although there had been no changes to their generation in these few versions. Near the very snowy village where the 2 chunks had been cut out, there were no changes. The chunks did not return, and thankfully no new ones formed. The first structural problem I encountered was the trial chambers. There was no tough blocks in this version, so they all disappeared. Only copper blocks of various oxidation levels remained. It's very strange why they weren't replaced with special blocks. You'll see them soon. Of course, I couldn't just pass by the ancient city, so I loaded it too. In addition, I was able to discover this giant mangrove swamp biome. I wonder what will happen to it in the next version. By the way, the next version in our test is Caves and Cliffs Part 1. Yes, I will skip some versions because nothing had changed significantly. Often they are only minor issues. In our case, we skipped 1.18 and jumped to 1.17. It was unexpected, but instead of a beautiful large mangrove swamp, I literally saw mountains. And the mountains looked extremely poor, because they were generated completely cut off. No, the tops are okay, they were cut vertically. There were even a few stolen chunks, like near the cold village. All that remained of the beautiful mangrove trees were hanging vines. They just stayed hanging remaining in place, but only in some places. It looks very creepy, but that's just the beginning. As soon as I returned to the spawn, I was met with a total disappointment. In the territory of my beautiful dark forest, shameless mountains had vertically appeared. I honestly cannot understand why the version change led to such behavior in the game. Why weren't the mountains generated completely? Unfortunately, I didn't have an answer to that question. At the same time, a full-fledged village and villagers with professions appeared not far from my spawn. That is, it wasn't there before. Another village, literally opposite, was not so lucky. Parts of the houses were eaten by the world generator, and in some places chunks disappeared altogether. As I continued to explore this brave new world, I kept coming across these square boxes. They were mostly made of stone or dirt. At first glance, they looked like someone's houses, but when I got closer, I realized that it was another glitch in the map generator. Remember that majestic badlands and wooded badlands? Yes, only cropped chunks remain of it. It's a shame that even the size has decreased significantly. It feels like someone simply forgot to extract the remains of the badlands. At some point during my exploration, Minecraft even crashed. I don't know if it was because the new areas were loading or if there was just some kind of problems with the world itself, but it only happened a few times. Of course, the ancient city surprised me the most. When I flew up to it, I was simply shocked. Look at what it has become. Because there were sculk blocks in the game code, but they weren't in the update itself, Minecraft generated these dirt blocks with the world update writing on them instead. The chests in this structure were completely empty, meaning that all the loot was gone. When you fly very quickly around the city, it feels like these are endstone blocks, but when you fly a little closer, it looks like hay bales. It is impossible to obtain these blocks or somehow get them into your inventory. They are instantly destroyed and even repeat the model of an inaccessible block. I saw this for the first time. It looks very unusual. For the next version, I also loaded a little nether so that every biome and all structures from this dimension would be generated for the further experiments. The next update we will cover is 1.13, Buzzy Bees. Yes, in Bedrock Minecraft the version numbering up to 1.16 was slightly different. They deliberately skipped version 1.15 so that the numbering would match both Java and Bedrock starting with the nether update. This means that version 1.15 does not exist by default. Yes, I skipped nether update and jumped straight to the version 1.14 so as not to be spent too much time exploring each version step by step. I rushed to the nether to find out what had happened to the previously generated biomes. Right next to my portal I found a nether fortress, but it was there last time, only now there were no mobs spawning there. This isn't really relevant to the topic, but it was like I discovered ghast shadows in Bedrock for the first time. The thing is, it spreads across the block just like it would in real life, repeating the terrain. This was a revelation to me. Imagine my surprise when I saw a crimson forest biome where only so-called foliage blocks in form of nether wart blocks remained instead of trees. They didn't disappear like trees, but remained hanging in place. It looked a little weird, like in Java, where they disappeared along with the trees. Funny, but the fortress that was not far from the biome is fully functional, and wither skeletons with the other mobs spawn there, although it has been cut off a bit. Unfortunately, the other biome simply disappeared, leaving behind a wasteland. But the Bastion remnants are a different story. Yes, the blocks are gone, replaced by air blocks, so to speak, but the outlines remain in place. That is, the blocks that were generated inside the Bastion remained. Lava continued to float in the air, chests and gold were untouched, although the chests were completely empty. Even though it wasn't supposed to happen in the game, the magma cube spawners remained untouched and continued to summon magma cubes. In the overworld, everything was much worse. For reasons unknown to me, visual bugs began to appear in the places where the chunks disappeared. The territory simply did not load properly, even though I restarted not only the world, but the Minecraft as a whole. The result remained the same. Somehow an abandoned village or zombie village appeared near this place, but on Bedrock they are generated more often than on Java. I was even more surprised when not far from my spawn I found those very cut out chunks. That is, I got the impression that someone took them, cut them out from the places where they disappeared and just randomly inserted them somewhere here. Due to the fact that the world became much smaller in height, there was simply no bedrock on the very last block along the y-axis. If you went down, you could see huge square voids in large quantities. After that, I immediately started exploring version 1.12. I wanted to try it out and then move on to the later version of the game, but but as soon as I entered, it was as if nothing new had happened. The whole world remained the same. Of course, at first glance, it seems to me that the number of those cut-off mountains that had grown out of the ground had decreased, but I reviewed the previous footage and they remain untouched. Although it was hard to not notice, the graphical bugs were gone, meaning that where chunks did not load in the previous version, everything finally loaded without any problems. However, the cropped structures in form of village houses remained, even on previously unloaded chunks. Everything else remained the same. That's when my problem started, as the free chunker could no longer convert the world to the old version. So I had to buy Universal Tool for $12.50. And imagine my disappointment when I saw that the oldest version that allows you to convert your world is 1.7. Yes, this way we moved straight to the Minecraft version 1.7. Unfortunately, it didn't have a special name. It just led us to the final stage of the update aquatic. The first thing I noticed was a zombie village. It remained in place, but the villagers were gone, and some of the houses were cut down again for some reason. Then the beautiful bamboo forest disappeared. In its place, you could find podzol, watermelons, several jungle trees, and an oak tree. It is very interesting that a full-fledged village was generated near those very vertically cut mountains. Yes, it was old-fashioned, and yes, it was generated right in the mountain. The villagers were also present. A little further away, a winter biome was generated where a polar bear could be found. By the way, it was very unusual to see new villages with only old textures, which gave me the uncanny valley effect. The badlands that still haven't been dug up look very strange with the old textures, like pieces of sausage. In some places, cursed villages even appeared, but that's what I call them. In fact, these are new villages with old textures. Just the blocks of stairs on the buildings have been turned the other way around, which looks quite creepy. In the nether, everything remained untouched, except for the magma cube spawner. It just stopped working. Unfortunately, I couldn't get anything else to work. No matter how hard I tried to convert the world, other versions of Minecraft couldn't see it. I even resorted to tricks with the NBT editor, typing in a compatible version, but nothing worked. More precisely, the world was imported but did not appear in the list. I even tried to create a world in this version, deleted the old files and loaded the new ones, but to no avail. Funny, but I loaded the same world in version 1.16 and it appeared in the list without any problems. It needed not to be edited, but sadly everything that had been generated earlier disappeared. When loading the world, an error appeared saying that the world was corrupted and could not be saved. But after rebooting, everything fell into place. It was a completely new world with nothing left of the old one. It was very disappointing that all the progress I had made had simply vanished. I wanted to at least some minor problems to appear, so I started with the latest available version of Minecraft Bedrock, namely 0.14. Yes, I know that there is also a Pocket Edition, but I left that for a separate video. As a result, after loading the world, problems were discovered, if I may say so. First, a giant swamp appeared, which was definitely not there in the previous version. Second, a new village appeared, and the walls of two houses were completely cut off. Although the village wasn't there either, it was generated in this very version. What are the results of our experiment? Once again, I was proven that the Bedrock Edition is a very closed system. It's strange that when I try to load the world from the new version, the game tells me that it can't be done, and I had to resort to the third-party programs. While on Java, the game simply warns me about the world issue and, at most, asks me to make a backup, and then simply tries to load the world. In any case, the world on Bedrock does not handle the transition from the new version to the old one very well, which only makes it more interesting. Next up for us is most likely Pocket Edition. Let's see what it has to offer. While you're waiting for the next video, check out these ones. They are just as interesting. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, smash that like button and hit the notification bell. See you soon, because we're discovering Minecraft in a whole new way.